We live in an age that celebrates freedom above all else. We are told constantly that we are free to choose our careers, free to pursue our passions, free to optimize our lives according to our desires. The chains of old authoritarian systems have been broken. We no longer answer to external masters who force us to labor through threat and coercion. We have entered what appears to be an emancipated society where each individual is the architect of their own destiny. Yet beneath this surface of liberation, a more insidious form of bondage has emerged, one that is harder to recognize precisely because it wears the mask of freedom. This is the new slavery of our time, and its shackles are forged not from iron, but from the imperative to be productive, to optimize, to perform. We have become both master and slave in a single body, and the whip we crack is the constant demand for self-improvement and achievement. The old disciplinary society operated through external commands. Factories, schools, hospitals, and prisons all functioned according to visible structures of power. You knew when you were being controlled because someone stood above you issuing orders. The boundaries between work and rest were clear. When the factory whistle blew, you stopped working. When you left the institution, you left its demands behind. This system was certainly oppressive, but its oppression was at least legible. You could identify your oppressor. You could resist, rebel, refuse. The power structure was explicit, and therefore it contained within itself the possibility of its own negation. Workers could organize. They could strike. They could demand an 8-hour workday because they knew exactly where their exploitation occurred and who benefited from it. Today's achievement society operates through an entirely different mechanism. We are no longer obedient subjects who must follow external commands. We have become achievement subjects who command ourselves. The external master has been internalized. We are entrepreneurs of ourselves, constantly invested in our own human capital, forever seeking to increase our value in the marketplace of existence. This might sound like freedom, and indeed it presents itself as such, but it represents a far more total form of domination. When the master becomes internal, when we become our own slave drivers, there is no possibility of resistance. How can you strike against yourself? How can you organize with others when each person is isolated in their own individual project of self-optimization? The achievement subject exploits themselves willingly, even enthusiastically, believing this exploitation to be freedom and self-realization. The language of contemporary capitalism reveals this transformation. We no longer speak of workers, but of team members, not of employees, but of associates, not of labor, but of passion and purpose. Everyone is urged to find meaningful work, to do what they love, to turn their hobbies into side hustles. Productivity is no longer merely an economic necessity, but a moral virtue. To be productive is to be good. To optimize your time is to live correctly. To achieve is to fulfill your human potential. This moralization of productivity creates a perverse situation where we feel guilty not for exploiting others, but for failing to exploit ourselves sufficiently. The achievement subject experiences depression not as a response to external oppression, but as a failure of self-management. When we cannot meet the endless demands we place upon ourselves, we do not question the system that generates these demands. Instead, we conclude that something is wrong with us. We are not resilient enough, not optimized enough, not productive enough. The solution presented is never to reduce demands, but to enhance our capacity to meet them. We need better time management, more efficient morning routines, upgraded productivity apps, therapeutic interventions that will return us to functional achievement. Even our attempts to heal from burnout become new projects of optimization, new demands added to an already impossible list. The digital age has accelerated this process immeasurably. Technology that promised to liberate us from labor has instead colonized every moment of existence with the possibility of productivity. The smartphone ensures we are always reachable, always available, always potentially working. The boundaries that once separated work from leisure have dissolved. We check emails at dinner, take calls on vacation, use productivity apps to optimize our exercise and sleep. Every activity becomes subject to measurement and improvement. We track our steps, monitor our heart rates, analyze our sleep cycles, all in service of becoming more efficient machines of achievement. Rest itself becomes instrumental, justified only as preparation for future productivity. We meditate not to simply be, but to perform better. We sleep not because rest is inherently valuable, but because proper sleep hygiene improves cognitive function and decision-making capacity. The achievement society promises that if we work hard enough, if we are disciplined and dedicated enough, we can achieve anything. This is the great seduction of the productivity gospel. Unlike the old-class society where birth determined destiny, we are told that success is available to anyone willing to hustle. Failure, therefore, becomes entirely personal. If you have not achieved wealth, status, or fulfillment, it is because you did not want it badly enough, did not work hard enough, did not optimize sufficiently. This ideology serves power perfectly because it redirects all frustration inward. The system cannot be questioned because the system is neutral, simply providing opportunities. If you failed to capitalize on those opportunities, the fault lies with you alone. This creates a society of isolated individuals, each convinced of their personal inadequacy, each competing against all others in a race that has no finish line. What makes this form of domination so total is that it operates through positive rather than negative commands. The disciplinary society said no, establishing prohibitions and restrictions. The achievement society says yes, apparently offering unlimited freedom and possibility. But this yes is more oppressive than any no because it recognizes no limits. You can always do more, be more, achieve more. There's always another level of optimization to reach, another goal to accomplish, another version of yourself to become. The yes is infinite and therefore infinitely exhausting. The exhaustion produced by this system manifests in characteristic pathologies of our age. Depression, attention deficit disorder, burnout syndrome, these are not merely individual failures of mental health, but social epidemics that reveal the violence of positivity. When everything is possible, when you are told you can be anything, the inability to realize infinite potential registers as personal catastrophe. The depressed achievement subject wars against themselves, exhausted by the demand to become who they are supposed to be. This is violence, but it is a violence that leaves no visible marks because the hand that strikes and the body that suffers belong to the same person. We have internalized violence so completely that we experience our own self-exploitation as freedom, our own self-destruction as self-care. The demand for constant productivity also destroys our capacity for contemplation. Contemplative attention requires time that produces nothing, moments of deep focus that have no immediate utility. But the achievement society cannot tolerate such unproductive time. Every moment must be justified by its output. We have become incapable of simply dwelling with things, of allowing meaning to emerge slowly through patient attention. Instead, we skim, scan, consume information in rapid bursts optimized for efficiency. We multitask, dividing our attention into fragments, never fully present to anything. This scattered hyperactivity prevents the kind of deep thinking that might allow us to step back and question the entire system. Contemplation is dangerous to the achievement society because it opens a space outside productivity, a space where one might recognize the slavery one has volunteered for. The language of entrepreneurship has become universalized. Everyone must be an entrepreneur now, not just of businesses, but of their entire existence. You must brand yourself, market yourself, network strategically, invest in your human capital. Your personality becomes a product to be optimized for maximum return. Authenticity itself becomes a performance, carefully curated for an audience of potential employers, clients, or followers. We present ourselves on social media as living our best lives, showcasing our productivity and achievement, even as we feel increasingly empty and exhausted behind the performance. The self has become a project, And like all projects in the achievement society, it is never finished, never good enough, always requiring further work. This transformation extends even to our intimate relationships. Love becomes a matter of cost-benefit analysis. We swipe through potential partners as if shopping, always wondering if a better option awaits. Commitment becomes difficult because it forecloses other possibilities, and the achievement subject must keep all options open. Relationships themselves become projects requiring optimization. We read books about how to have better sex, communicate more effectively, maintain romantic passion according to research-based principles. Even in our most private moments, we cannot escape the demand to perform and improve. The other person becomes instrumental to our project of self-realization rather than someone with whom we simply are. The question then becomes how we might recognize and resist this new form of slavery. The first step is acknowledging that what appears as freedom is often its opposite. The achievement subject who works voluntarily around the clock is not more free than the factory worker who labored under compulsion. In some ways, they are less free because they cannot even identify their bondage as bondage. They experience their exploitation as self-realization, their exhaustion as meaningful sacrifice. To break this spell requires developing a vocabulary that can name the violence of positivity, that can recognize optimization as a form of domination rather than liberation. We must learn to see that the problem is not our failure to be sufficiently productive, but the demand for infinite productivity itself. Resistance might begin with reclaiming useless time, time that produces nothing, achieves nothing, optimizes nothing. This means cultivating practices of genuine rest that are not recuperation for future labor, but valuable in themselves. It means protecting spaces of contemplation where we can simply dwell with things without immediately seeking to extract value from them. It means recognizing that boredom, idleness, and unproductive wandering are not failures to be corrected, but essential aspects of human flourishing. The achievement society has taught us to fear any moment not filled with purpose and activity. But it is precisely in such moments that we might discover who we are beyond our productive capacity. We must also resist the isolation that the achievement society imposes. When each person is competing against all others in an individualized struggle for success, solidarity becomes impossible. Yet it is only through collective recognition of our shared exhaustion that we might challenge the system producing it. This requires moving beyond the language of personal optimization to articulate common grievances. The problem is not that you individually failed to manage your time well enough. The problem is a social and economic system that demands impossible levels of constant productivity from everyone. Once we recognize this as a structural rather than personal issue, we can begin to imagine collective responses rather than individual coping mechanisms. Perhaps most fundamentally, we need to question the equation of productivity with human worth. A person's value does not depend on their output, their achievements, their optimization of potential. The demand to constantly justify our existence through productivity is itself a form of violence. We are worthy simply because we exist, not because we have accomplished anything or become anyone in particular. This may sound like a simple point, but accepting it deeply would represent a radical break from the logic of achievement society. It would mean recognizing that rest is not earned through prior productivity, but is a basic right, that contemplation has value beyond any useful application, that we do not need to become anything other than what we already are. The new slavery operates through the internalization of the master. Freedom begins when we recognize that voice demanding endless productivity for what it is, an alien imperative that has colonized our inner life, and dare to disobey it. Only then can we begin to imagine and construct forms of existence, not organized around achievement, optimization, and the exhausting demand to be always and forever productive.